All right, for those of you joining in over on YouTube, getting ready to go live here on TikTok, probably not going to be nearly as crazy as it was last night, especially with the multi-guest show. But let's see. So we are waiting for people to come in. Got a few things we can talk about. Obviously, waiting for TJ the Plumber, our mod, and who was a guest on that multi-guest live we did last night with the Rational Boomer. So for those of you joining in, we are going to be talking news, politics, things like that. Got a few things we can talk about. Donald Trump took to Truth Social today and was talking about how he wants to build monuments to American heroes and heroines. Didn't say who, but remembering that when there was a big push to take down Confederate monuments, he had a big issue with it. I think that has an idea of which direction he would lean. Some people wonder if he's going to want to carve, his image into a mountain like Mount Rushmore or something similar. And there's going to be pushback for it. That's going to take funding from Congress. And I just don't see there being any idea or want to put a bunch of money into monuments and things like that. I mean, we've been making monuments. I believe it was during the Obama administration. They added Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial to the National Mall. Things like that. We've been doing it. It isn't like something that we completely stopped. They just quit doing monuments to Confederacy, to the people that had actually took up arms and attacked this country during the Civil War. So we'll see what he ends up doing there. Again, it's going to take Congress, and God, please, no Trump monuments, not even a library. Well, I have not heard of anybody or anything about the Trump library from his first term. I don't think they've even started. I don't think they've picked a location. I don't think he has any interest in doing a library, but he may want to do some kind of a big monument, something similar to the Washington Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, something big like that, because that's where he sees himself as far as what kind of a president he is. He thinks he's in like the top 3 or 4. And if you ask him, he'd probably say he's the best president of all time, even ahead of Lincoln. Mark says Trump can't read. No, he might be able to read at about a 4th or 5th grade level at best. But he can't read anything complex, not even the least. But yeah, he's talking about wanting to do monuments, and some people are wondering if he's going to want to do something like a Mount Rushmore with his face on it. But there's TJ, our moderator, which is good. Now, if he were to do something like that, it would take Congress and them appropriating money, and I just don't see that happen. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to approve him any money for monuments. I don't know how much discretionary money would be in some of the other budgets that he could move around, but I don't think they will approve him any extra money. Not when they're talking about doing $2 trillion worth of cuts out of government spending. Not gonna lie, the assassination photo and Trump winning emboldened the MAGA cult and the evangelicals. They did, but still, I don't think there'll be enough support for them to do any sort of a national Trump monument. Now, he thinks he's in the top 1 or 2 of presidents. Just ask him. They went crazy with that. Oh, yeah, they did. They went crazy with the assassination attempt and the photo from that where he had his fist in the air, and him winning and all that kind of stuff. But he thinks he's in the top 1 or 2 when most historians rank him at 45 out of 45. Now, we've had Joe Biden is the 46th president, and we've had 46 presidents, 45 people have held the office. Mark says he's down there with Andrew Johnson. Yeah, he is. He's way down there. Uh, Kate says the second wasn't an attempt, just dramatics. Yeah, uh, it was dramatics because there was never a shot fired. Um, and it's very weird that they spotted him multiple hundreds of yards away. They spotted the gun barrel sticking out of the fence. There's a lot of issues with that second attempt. Josie says, "Don't you think the second attempt is fishy? We ain't heard a thing since the arrest." Yeah. Q Quip tells me why Biden was better than Trump. First of all, he accomplished something. They got legislation passed in the Biden administration. That infrastructure bill that we kept hearing was 2 weeks away the entire Trump administration. Biden passed it. Inflation Reduction Act, Biden passed it. When it came to the CHIPS Act and starting to build computer chips here in this country so we can compete with China, Biden passed it. He made it a priority. Um, Joe Biden appointed the first woman of color or the first black woman to the Supreme Court. Made it a point. He appointed the most diverse federal bench that we've ever seen, as far as just all of the federal judge positions. Kate says capped insulin costs. Yeah, capped insulin costs for everybody, not just a select few that the Donald Trump cap actually did. Trump didn't have, I'm not going to say that capping insulin was a bad idea. Trump did a good thing starting to do it, but he only capped it for a few people. Biden made it happen for everybody that was on Medicare. And they were planning to expand on it. Joe Biden tried and successfully did expand or forgive some student loans using existing programs that were already in place, making sure that the people who should have already had their loans forgiven, in some cases for multiple years, should have already had their loan forgiven, actually got the forgiveness that was owed to them under existing laws. Joe Biden has been one of the most successful presidents. Unfortunately, Joe Biden doesn't crow about his achievements. John says something's not true. Don't know what you think is. I said out of there was not true. All of it is true. Joe Biden has lowest unemployment in 50 years coming out of the pandemic. Inflation. We had the best reduction of inflation worldwide. He got our economy back from the brink when all of the nations were suffering under inflation, not just us. Joe Biden has been one of the best presidents, but again, he doesn't crow about what he's done. He lets his record speak for itself, for the most part. I see Debbie's jumped in. You didn't miss much this time, Debbie. Only been going about 10 minutes or so. Yeah, Joe Biden has been one of the best presidents. I think ultimately he will probably be, I would say historians are probably going to rank him top 15 all time. Donald Trump, based on his first term, historians put him at 45 out of 45. They put him at 45 out of 45. We have had 46 presidents, 45 people have held the position because of Grover Cleveland having two non-connected terms. They were separated with, I can't remember who was in between, but they had one president in between. And they rank Donald Trump at 45, the lowest you can get out of 45. He is ranked lower than William Henry Harrison, and I say this all the time. Oh, it was Benjamin Harrison that was in between Cleveland. Okay. Well, he's ranked lower than the other Harrison, William Henry Harrison, whose only claim to fame was giving a 3-hour speech in the rain on Inauguration Day, getting pneumonia, and dying. That's all he accomplished in his presidency. And he ranks higher on the list that he is ahead of Donald Trump. William says Luigi will need the O.J. Simpson team. Uh, yeah, I don't know what to think about that whole deal. That's kind of a weird whole situation there. Um, Mark says that was his grandfather. Are you saying William Henry Harrison was Benjamin's grandfather or the other way around? J.D. Vance's baby face looks similar to Hoover. Well, I keep comparing the potential downturn of the economy with as bad as it could be to the 1929 stock market crash. So I guess that's um, another coincidence, I guess. Mark says William was Benjamin's grandfather. Okay, I get him backward. Um, I think Benjamin had a little bit more success as a president than his grandfather. Debbie says, "Did you hear about the turtle?" Yeah, I heard a little bit about that. Apparently, he fell or something and scuffed himself up, and got some marks on his face or something again. Um, yeah, TJ, Mitch McConnell, the turtle. Um, yeah, apparently he fell. Did he go to the hospital? I hadn't heard whether he did or not. I just heard that he had fallen and gotten bruised up. Kate says JD has disappeared, which is not all bad. No, it's not. And that's what you're going to see out of him the rest of his term as vice president, up until he needs to take over and become president should something happen to Donald Trump. He's going to be ignored, basically. He's going to be hidden in the shadows. He's going to show up, run the Senate like he is supposed to, and that's the only time you're going to hear him, is if he has to do something impressive in the Senate, or whenever there's a joint session of Congress, like for the State of the Union, things like that. Frida says sprained his wrist. Oh, for Mitch? Okay, so he sprained his wrist too when he fell. I only heard bits and pieces. And I caught that, just a little bit of that from here on TikTok. I hadn't actually seen any articles on it yet. But JD's going to be very hidden. You're not going to hear much about JD Vance. Debbie says, I saw your video about him complaining about Biden picking judges. The nerve. Oh, talking about Mitch McConnell. Yeah, he's very pissed about Joe Biden filling out the rest of the open judge positions that he has every right to fill from now until January 20th, when Donald Trump becomes president. And Mitch McConnell doesn't like that they're pushing him through. Yet, back in 2016, in February, when, now I'm drawing a blank. Scalia, Anton Scalia died. Justice Scalia died. He said February's too close to the election, and we're gonna hold that pick open for the next president. And then turns around and pushes Amy Coney Barrett through after Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies, in weeks, right after she died. Mitch McConnell has no room to talk. Elon's going to be the de facto VP, maybe up until they butt heads and they end up, Musk will be the odd one out, because you're not going to, when they butt heads, you can't get rid of the president unless they do something like a 25th Amendment, something like that. So Trump's going to be the one to get rid of Elon, and he's going to be out. So it won't be a thing. Biden better work fast. Oh, about the judges? Well, one of the things Biden's doing, and I did a TikTok on this, there is a piece of legislation that was going to be brought up, that they started to work on ahead of the election, to add 22 judges to the federal bench. Well, 63 over the next like 8-10 years. And they would be spread out across 3 presidencies. And they were trying to pass it before we knew who was going to be the president for any of those terms. And 22 would have been filled by the incoming president, which is now Donald Trump. And Joe Biden would have signed this legislation before the election. And now he's saying, yeah, we know what Donald Trump can do and how much damage he'll do to the bench, so I'm not going to sign it. I'll veto it. Which is great. JD was a favor for Project 2025. Yeah. He is, but they don't have the votes to do a whole lot with Project 2025. They may want to do a bunch, but they're just not going to be able to pass a bunch of it through Congress. And despite what a lot of people think, and a lot of people are trying to be worried about, they're going to need Congress to pass a bunch of it. Just watch Trump and the Republicans try to fix the electrical grid when companies need it. Yeah, they're not going to know what to do. They took the pandemic response playbook that we had and threw it out the window and said, we know better, and then a million people ended up dying because of COVID. Imagine when it's the electrical grid. They're not going to have a plan. They're not going to have a clue. The whole Trump cult is a joke. It very much is, and it's very much a cult. Because they don't like any criticism of their leader. Carol says Trump's Bibles are being sold in Oklahoma public schools with the Constitution being considered as history. I mean, the Constitution is history, but yeah, they want to teach the Bible as a historical document or something. It's going to ultimately get tossed by the courts. They've gone through separation of church and state and keeping prayer out of public schools. I think ultimately it gets tossed and it gets held up, but they're going to keep trying. Joe says, for all the good Biden did, he's going to be judged harshly for not going after Trump and J6 harder. I've talked about that a lot. And Merrick Garland failed us. We find out, Merrick Garland gets appointed as head of the Department of Justice, as the Attorney General. We think there's an investigation going on behind the scenes. We're just waiting for it to come out that, they're doing all this. J6 committee gets to work, tackles a bunch of the stuff with the J6, and they're having hearings and we're hearing all this stuff. We're like, man, it's gonna be good. Merrick Garland's gotta be watching all this. He's got to be paying attention. They're gonna come through it. Then we get to the election, and we find out after the election when they start releasing the J6 report. Oh shit, Merrick Garland hadn't even started yet. He sat on his hands, didn't want to appear political by going after the guy that just lost to Joe Biden. So he doesn't start until he gets public pressure. The biggest failure of Joe Biden was not firing Merrick Garland at that point and saying, we need somebody in there that'll do the job. Kate asks, is it considered like a textbook for a class? Yeah, they want the Bible to be taught like a textbook for class. It's ridiculous. Frida says good for Joe. Debbie asks, do you know which classes they read the Bible in? I know it can't be math. Well, Republicans hate math. But they're going to probably try to teach a specific Bible class if they could get away with it. TJ says Texas is deregulated. Oh, talking about the power grid. Yeah, when they're not on the national grid, which is why their grid fails all the time. Perfect example of why you can't do it, just doesn't work. Kate says Trump can't get 80% of his ones accomplished. No, he can't. Because they don't have the votes in Congress, and it's just not going to happen. And they can't get along with themselves. TJ took care of a bot saying Trump for king. Yeah, a bunch of these people, they want to go in the exact opposite direction of what America is based on. We got rid of a monarch to put the power in the hands of the people. And they want to go back to a monarchy. It's bizarre. Debbie says, I saw that indoctrinating video they have to play every morning. Kate asks about if it's in Oklahoma. Yeah, it's like a prayer type video that basically is a prayer not for Donald Trump, but to Trump. It is ridiculous, and these people call themselves Christian. Debbie says, Garland should have been on that since day one. J6 committee did all the hard work. They did. They did the hard work. They did the heavy lifting. And then Merrick Garland sat on his hands and didn't do anything and didn't appoint even Jack Smith until the public outcry was bad enough, going, where the fuck's the DOJ? Carmen says Trump don't qualify for president. Unfortunately, he shouldn't, but he does, because there's only 3 requirements. You got to be 35, a natural-born U.S. citizen, and not have already served 2 terms. There's only, those are the only requirements for now. I think ultimately they will pass an amendment at some point modifying it and changing it, but he shouldn't qualify based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, but I haven't heard of anything being done to enforce that, and I don't know what they could do at that point, short of impeaching and removing him once he is president. Debbie said, is there something people can do to stop the Bible thing? Can't he get kicked out? They're suing him. They're suing the head of the state school superintendent and trying to block the law and block that from happening. That's the best thing we can do at this point. Carol asks, I wonder, is Trump getting paid for these Bibles? Yeah. That's one of the multiple reasons why they're suing. In part because the guidance that he originally said for which Bibles he wanted to put, the only Bible that met those criteria was the Trump Bible. And they're saying, first they're saying it's unconstitutional to teach Bible in school, which it is. And I think they're going to succeed just on that. But they're also saying, even if it is, there are multiple cheaper options than the Trump Bible that you can buy, for less than $5 a copy. But instead they're going with the $60 copy. And they're suing, saying he's wasting taxpayer money in Oklahoma, things like that. Ultimately, it's in the hands of the courts, and we'll have to see what happens there. Trump is proof you don't need to be smart to be president. Very true. He is not smart. He speaks and talks at about a 6th grade level, maybe a little less. And that's part of his charm, is that that's what people were drawn to, is he talks like they think. And it resonated with him, even because he could say a lot without saying anything at all. Debbie says he is. They are paying $6 million for those Bibles. Yeah, it's ridiculous. They're paying $6 million in taxpayer money to buy Trump Bibles. Debbie also says it's wrong to spend $6 of our tax dollars on effing Trump Bibles. Yeah, there's got to be a conflict of interest there somewhere, you would think. Trump is going to promote religion and go after scientists. Oh, yeah. And it's not that he's a religious person by any means, but science typically proves him wrong. And he doesn't like being proven wrong. He doesn't like educated people because educated people make him look dumb. So he wants to go after the scientists. He wants to go after educators. He wants to go after universities. He was talking about trying to set up some kind of a national online college that would basically be an indoctrination center for Trump loyalty. J.D. Farmer says he's pandering to his base. He's not religious. No, he's not. He's not at all. He rarely steps foot in a church. In fact, when he was at Notre Dame over the weekend, I'm surprised he didn't burst into flames. But he doesn't care about religion. He's only using it because he knows he can fire up a big chunk of this country by pandering to religion. Debbie says, I saw today he's now ignoring evangelical leaders. He's not taking their call or nothing. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I hadn't heard that, but that wouldn't surprise me. He doesn't need them anymore. He got them to vote for him, to get their followers to vote for him, and then once he got in, he doesn't need them. He has no need for any of his voters anymore. And that's why I don't know if he's gonna what he's gonna do for the common people, because he doesn't need them. Kate says, I thought he was gonna compust at Notre Dame. Yeah, that would have been interesting. Might have made a few more believers out of people if it would have happened. They smeared Kamala with Christianity. I saw it on TikTok going viral. They did the same thing with Barack Obama. I remember when Barack Obama was running against Mitt Romney, I had a conversation with somebody who was very religious. And they believed 100% that Barack Obama was a Muslim. And that Mitt Romney was a good Christian. Mormons aren't exactly Christian. They have some out there, their own style beliefs. They're an offshoot of Christianity, maybe. But I do know they have some very specific belief systems. And like, to say Barack Obama wasn't a Christian, when the pastor at the church he went to said, he's in church, he goes to my church, didn't want to believe it at all. And I'm not surprised they were able to do the same thing with Kamala Harris. Debbie says, that's the one group he wouldn't ignore. Caught me off guard. Not really. He doesn't need any of them anymore. The only people he's going to pay attention to now is billionaires, people who can give him money. I mean, he'll still pander to his base a little bit, so we can keep grifting off of them and issue more merch and NFTs and coins and sneakers and all that kind of stuff. But as far as giving them anything they want, as far as politically, he doesn't need them. Carol says, how can evangelicals live with their hypocrisy? No idea. It's pretty blatant. Okay. It's nice to meet you, says California, $2 billion in debt. Kamala spent $1 billion in 30 days. No. California is not $2 billion in debt. They're a giver state. They routinely have way more money than they need. They're the 5th largest economy in the world. They could survive as an independent country. They're not in debt. Kamala Harris raised $1 billion in 30 days. And as far as it's nice to meet you, well, it wasn't nice to meet you, and now you're gone. The problem with a lot of these MAGA Trump supporters is they don't know what's going on. They've never heard half of the actual truth about what's going on in this country. You tell them the things Donald Trump himself says. Well, he was on Meet the Press and he said this. I've never heard that. Debbie said Mike Johnson said the American people gave them a mandate to shake things up. I wouldn't call it a mandate. By what metric? He won by one of the thinnest popular vote margins in any presidential election for like 100 plus years, and he only won by 6 more electoral votes than him or Joe Biden won by in the last 2 elections. I wouldn't call that a mandate. Now, I don't remember the exact total, but one of Barack Obama's terms, didn't he end up winning by like 400 electoral? Like he had 400 electoral votes, something like that. I would call that a mandate. Let's see. Oh, Michael T is gone. Uh, Debbie said he's using that excuse to justify Trump's actions and bad policies. Yeah, they're gonna keep calling it a mandate, but then if when in 2028, if the roles reversed and because whoever the Republicans run, probably not going to be, uh, it won't be Donald Trump and probably won't win. Um, if if they flip the role and the Democrat wins by 312 and has wins it by less than 2% of the popular vote, can we call that a mandate? Or are they going to say, well, you just squeaked out a win? The thing with Donald Trump and his supporters, everything he does is always the biggest, the best at everything. Um, Debbie says, do you think they can deny elections after Trump? Now they know Trump lied. Um, what do you mean? Do you mean like they did in 2020, saying that the Democrat didn't win? Maybe. They could easily try that. I don't put it past them. Uh, you know, going forward, let's see, they still believe he won 2020. They do. They completely believe he won. Why? Because he set up everything ahead of time. He was talking about it being rigged and stolen from the get-go. From what? February, March of 2020, something like that. As we found out who Joe Biden was going to be, he kept saying it was the only way he would lose. You know, was if he was if they rigged it against him. Well, then when he lost, he's like, "See, I told you," and they believed it. They bought it hook, line, and sinker. But he said the same thing going into the Iowa primaries all the way back in 2016. He said if he lost the Iowa caucuses, that it was clearly rigged against him. He says it about everything. Debbie says that's crazy. If we cheated, why did Trump win this time? Did we forget how to rig it? That's the point. Not to mention the same people that were saying it was rigged for the presidential election were trying to convince their base that somehow the Democrats knew how to rig the presidential election, but they wouldn't have rigged down ballot races to end up, winning those seats too. And then, if we knew how to rig it in 2020, why'd we somehow lose in 2024? If we already knew how did they make it happen? None of it makes sense. But they have to cover for the loss of their Lord and Savior. TJ's doing good work out there, keeping our chat safe. I know TJ normally says it, but I'm going to say it out there too. Don't interact with the trolls. We just block them all. They don't add to the conversation. It's not worth it. And we got another one. It's not worth engaging with them. They just report you. They try to get your lives taken down. Keith asks if this country will survive Trump. Yeah, it will. We've been around for 250 years. We survived 230 plus without Trump. We'll survive after Trump. And the biggest reason is they just don't have the margins to do anything they want to do. They have 3 seats in the House, 3 seats in the Senate, can't get around the filibuster, they can't pass constitutional amendments because that takes 2/3 of both houses. They don't have that. And congressional Republicans can't get along with each other. They're going to be fighting and complaining and going on about everything because they can't agree. They can't agree. So they're going to barely get anything done, and yes, we'll survive Trump. Kate says, do you think the government will shut down in 10 days? No. I think the Democrats will come to their aid, will pass a continuing resolution, and end up being just fine. But it'll be a continuing resolution kicking the can down the road to like March, something like that. Then March will come around. Republicans won't be able to agree on a budget with themselves being in control, and Democrats will have to save the day again. Carol says to whoever, that guy's already been blocked. My head is too important for Trump or anyone else to live rent-free. Yeah, they don't live rent-free in our head. Like I said, we block all the Trump humpers in here. They don't add anything to the conversation. They get you reported. They get your lives taken down. They get your videos taken down. They get you account warnings so that you can lose your account. Debbie says, I think we'd do much better if we got rid of the fossils and elected younger people with fresh ideas. Oh, yeah. I complain about it all the time. And this is a both sides of the aisle problem. On one side, you got my senator, Chuck, I'm older than chocolate chip cookies Grassley. He was born in 33. Chocolate chip cookies were first printed in 1938. And he has been in the Senate longer than I'm alive. And he needs to go. That's half the problem. People like that keep getting reelected. But then on the other side, you have the Democrats. You got people like Nancy Pelosi, been in the Senate a long time. You're telling me you can't find anybody in San Francisco who would be a younger representation of San Francisco? Seriously? Democrats have the same problem. Just like, and this is nothing against her legacy. Dianne Feinstein was a great senator. But toward the end of her life, they needed to let her retire. But no, she died, still a senator. And she was so out of it half the time, she didn't know where she was. Her daughter had to go to court to get power of attorney because they said that Dianne Feinstein couldn't handle her own money. How is that person still allowed to be in the Senate passing bills? It doesn't make sense. Both sides of the aisle have problems with our politicians being in there for too long and too old. Gallifrey J says, San Fran could run anyone on the Democratic ticket and win. That's what I mean. Keith says, what do you see happening in the next 4 years? A lot of nothing. They're going to get some things done. They may not even get their tax cuts passed that they want to pass because they don't agree with each other. The Republicans are going to struggle to do anything. They're going to struggle to pass anything, to do anything. And then in the midterms, whatever Donald Trump has done to hurt the country is going to come up. Democrats are going to retake control of Congress in the midterms, more than likely, especially if things turn bad because of tariffs, things like that. If the economy starts to crash, Democrats will be right back in. And then nothing gets done in the midterms in the second 2 years because Democrats will be blocking every potential chance for the Republicans to do anything. Carol says Claiborne of South Carolina asked Biden to pardon Trump. A joke. Yeah, they want. They're saying Joe Biden should pardon Donald Trump for the good of the nation. That's the same stuff we heard about Ford pardoning Nixon. If Ford would have never pardoned Nixon and would have left them go after him, then Merrick Garland wouldn't have sat on his hands for 2 years because there would have been precedent for going after a former president and would have said, okay, no, it clearly isn't political, and would have done something. But instead, Ford pardoned Nixon, and now they had this, well, we really shouldn't go after former presidents. It's against that norm that we have. It's not a law, just a norm. And they kept it going, and now they want another pardon for Trump. It's ridiculous. Debbie says Jasmine Crockett said the same thing. She wants us to fight, but the fossils won't. Yeah, they're not really ready to fight the. They're not wanting to fight the fight. They want to keep playing politics like it worked 40 years ago. Joe Biden. I love Joe Biden. He's been a great president. But he wants to play politics the way politics works 40 years ago. It doesn't work the same anymore. Donald Trump has upended politics for the time being. Wyatt says, we have the power to change all of it. Power in the people. The work has begun. Yeah, we have. The people have a lot of power, but the biggest power they have is to vote. And we need to make our voices loud. We need to stop being apathetic. We need to knock off the protest votes. And because that was part of it. There is at least a section of this country who chose not to vote top of the ticket and vote for president either way. They couldn't vote for Trump, but they refused to vote for Kamala Harris as a protest, either because of how she became the nominee, how they treated Joe Biden, because they were protesting the day-to-day economy, whether they were protesting her campaigning too much with Liz Cheney or the wars going on, or any of it. They chose to protest. And, you know, we need to stop that mentality, because not voting is like voting for the person you don't want to win to win. Gallifrey J says Dems should obstruct any and every. Yeah, obstruct everything. Everything. You know, there are some things that probably would be for the good of the country. Okay, sure. If it's for the good of the country and it's actually a good idea, Democrats should get behind it. But otherwise, obstruct as much as they can. Do the same things Republicans like to do. JB says, are you unburdened by what has been? I have no idea what you mean by that. Like, what things are you referring to? Gallifrey says, why was my comment removed? No idea. I don't know which comment you're referring to. Debbie says, oh my God, I'm sick of Dems trying to pressure Biden to pardon Trump. Trump would never do that. No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't pardon anybody. He may try to pardon himself and test the limits of presidential authority, because it does say that the president has the ability to pardon pretty much anybody. And it has never been tried to pardon themselves. But never before, except for Nixon, has a president needed a pardon. James says, how successful do you see the mass deportations? Not very. Not very. Not at all. One, it's going to take a lot of money. Congress isn't going to appropriate those kind of funds. Just not going to happen. More than likely, and I think I got this idea from TJ, our moderator, that he's going to round up some, and then he's going to overinflate the number. Several thousand, he's going to call it millions, and he's going to get the photo ops he needs for the pictures and the video clips of people being arrested and detained and stuff like that. And then he's going to declare that he got rid of millions and millions, and that's about all he's going to do. Anything large scale is going to get held up by the courts. If they try to denaturalize people, that's going to get held up and tied up in the courts. There'll be lawsuits. He can't just take away birthright citizenship with an executive order in the stroke of a pen. That would take a constitutional amendment. And again, they don't have the votes for it. It's just not going to happen. So there may be some people, but I don't think they're going to get the near mass deportations that they really want. Gallifrey J says Biden should pardon all the J6ers just to be petty, so Trump can't. I don't like that idea. Just because the J6ers are actual criminals. They deserve everything they get. And if Donald Trump pardons them, that could be seen as giving aid or comfort to somebody who has committed insurrection against this country, and it could be used potentially as a way to get him out as president through impeachment or something like that with the 14th Amendment. Biden shouldn't take that route, not just for the sake of being petty. Debbie says, as much as we talk about getting the fossils out, people won't vote for younger candidates. I don't necessarily agree with that. We just need to be strategic start in some districts like San Francisco. You can run a Democrat, safe Democrat district. We can get rid of some of them. And we're just going to have to start doing it because you can't have them in power forever. Chuck Grassley will be 95 and he's going to be talking about running for re-election in 2028. Jesus Christ, I know he's a Republican. But 95, when I'm 95, I don't want to still be working. Yet he wants to still keep going. Carol says, I love you, all you guys. Good night. Good night. Hope you have a good one. Just going to throw this out there. I didn't get to that. Hopefully, but I got to it before she left the live. If you didn't catch the whole thing, I do record all my lives. It will be up over on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan, over on YouTube. And like I said, I post them all, so it'll be up over there. TJ says nothing the R will bring will be good. No, they won't. Debbie said on Boomer's channel, Will said we have to blame as well as obstruct. Everything is Trump's fault. Exactly. Will made a good point where he said over when he was a guest on the Rational Boomer podcast that beyond obstructing everything, we need to, people like myself, other creators on this app, just everybody that leans left, we need to be pointing out and blaming Republicans and Trump at every turn. Any chance we get, we have to be doing whatever we can to point the blame and point the finger. Do what the Republicans did for 4 years when everything went bad. Let's go Brandon. Fuck Joe Biden. All that bullshit. We need to do some of the same. Get down, get in the mud, point out the shit that happens because of them. Joseph says Biden's going to pull something fast and there's going to be no deportation. Would love to see it. I have no idea what that would be, but I would love to see it. Debbie says Trump is going to pardon himself. He may try it. I don't know what TJ was talking about, what we talked about last night. The deportations will be held up by business owners who need workers. Yeah. It's there's going to be a lot of people trying to fight and hold things up. And when the business owners start coming in and greasing Donald Trump's palms and things like that and patting him on the back and saying, this is really a bad idea. You're going to hurt the economy. and you'll look like such a fool if you do this. He'll back off. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump pulls stunts in theater as a president. Yeah. Oh, TJ already got that one. Uh, Trump can use deported immigrants and use them on inauguration day to build up the crowds. Doesn't matter when he shows up for a crowd. Uh, he's going to claim he's got massive crowds bigger than anybody. He's probably claim he's got 10 million people at his inauguration. Gallifrey says, I was kidding about Biden pardoning. I wouldn't support that either. Okay, I guess the humor didn't translate into the uh, comment section. It's kind of hard. Sometimes it is a little hard in text. Jollibee says, do you mind if I ask whereabouts in Iowa, generally speaking? About middle. Not exactly in the middle, but more central Iowa. Gallifrey J says, call out prices on goods as well. Eggs, coffee, gas. Yeah. We have to. We have to be loud. You know, somebody said we need to get the stickers just like they did. Put it on the gas pumps as prices go up. The I did that sticker. Things like that. Just be petty a little bit. And when it comes back and it starts to bite them in the ass and they start to feel the crunch, maybe then they'll start to realize that they fucked up. Debbie says, younger candidates don't have the same financial backing as the fossils. Well, that's where Democratic leadership needs to end up being more involved and getting some of these people to step out gracefully and then have them help with the fundraising on the backside and have it be a joint thing and not a big primary mess and a big fight. Not that, and not forced out like they did with Biden. They need to work together as a party for the good of the party and convince these people to step aside. Debbie says, do you think Republican base will be disturbed watching mass deportation on TV? And she continues by saying, I'm worried they'd like watching it. You know, I don't know. I think it depends on what ends up happening with that. Because if they depends how they do the deportations. If it literally just looks like normal police activity, they'd probably cheer and like it. If it looks like the military marching down the streets, you know, knocking on doors, invading people's homes and dragging people out, kicking and screaming and that kind of thing, I think they'd be very upset. And it also depends. A lot of them think, you know, the people they know are going to be safe because they're the good ones or what have you. If people they know and care about are caught up in the deportations, I think they would also be more affected by the mass deportations. Jollibee says, I'm in the bluest of blue, fortunately. Well, you're one of the lucky ones. Unfortunately, I am not. Glad you are in Iowa. Oh, well, thank you. That was just luck of the draw for me, I guess. But lived here most of my life. Oh. No. Did not want to do that. Okay, I guess I got TJ on for a little bit.
Well, I won't stay long. Unless you want me to.
I don't care. I think I just tapped it as I was scrolling through the chat.
It sent me a request and it said you wanted me to join.
I was just scrolling the chat.
Are you trying to be like Mike or what? What's on here?
No. Well, not intentionally. But I was just
That was kind of out of the box last night.
that was fun though. For those of you who
What? I agree.
for,
I agree.
for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, after I got done doing my live here last night, I went over and joined Mike, the Rational Boomer. I just planned on just hanging out in the comment section and enjoying the live. I mean, in his chat, less than 45 seconds, and he goes, "Hey, I see Eric. I'm going to send him an invite." And next thing you know, I'm in the box. We're talking, and after a little bit, TJ jumps in, and we were live for about an hour and 45 minutes.
I think it was my fault. I explained that to you earlier.
It might have been, but if that was the case, it still worked out. It was still a lot of fun. I'm not mad at it by any stretch of the imagination. It was great, but it was.
Are you telling me to do it again? Is that what you're telling me?
Sure, I'm okay with that. But yeah, I just jumped in. I'm like, sure, why not? It was so weird. I was in his live in the comments for like 45, not even probably 45 seconds, and he's like, "Hey, I see Eric." I'm like, "Okay." So I ended up going. I did my live for an hour and a half, and then we did like an hour 45 plus on the Boomers live. Debbie says Trumpers let you all go for almost 2 hours. Sweet. Well, part of the reason we were able to go live was because of TJ here. TJ was one of the two moderators over there on the Rational Boomer, kicking every single one of the Trump humpers' ass every time he got a chance. He takes great pleasure in booting them and kicking their ass.
Well, I certainly do that, but that's a tougher situation because there's times in that live where it's 1,700 people in that live at one time, and the screen moves so fast that it's even with two mods, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I was in one of the chats of one of the lives that was going like that, and even though I couldn't block them for Mike, I was trying to block them for myself, block them before they find me, and man.
They'll find you and then, take you down.
Yeah, so I was trying to get ahead of it. But man, some of those groups so bad. Debbie says, I like his parting words before he blocks them. Yeah, sometimes he says it before, sometimes he says it after. But he usually, or he says it as he blocks them, whichever. But Mike's always got a great comment to go with a lot of them.
That's kind of my shtick, Debbie. You know what I mean? Like,
TJ does too. Gallifrey says I would mod if he needs. Okay, I might have to do that. Yeah, and over here on TikTok, I don't mod for Mike, but I do on YouTube, and it's a little easier over there because it's not about his lives on YouTube are about like my lives here on TikTok. It's about like this. It's a little easier to mod. But, oh goodness.
I've modded with you on those lives.
Oh goodness. And of course the puppy had to get into the live stream.
That's way more manageable than some of the stuff that goes on over here.
Debbie says they actually participate in the chat and it boosts you. They do, but unfortunately having the Trump supporters in the chat beyond a comment or two doesn't help a lot because they're more likely to start mass reporting you the minute you say something they don't agree with, and next thing you know you're taken down, and then TikTok in its infinite wisdom will ban you for 10 days from going live or something like that.
Yeah, that happened to Mike recently.
Yeah. That's where I got that number from.
You know what's hilarious is that sometimes I'm watching the people join the live, and sometimes they get blocked before, like, I see their name and they're automatically blocked.
Yeah.
Like, a name like MAGA King 153 or whatever it is, and I just block them immediately.
That's a good call. I try to do that too when I can. Earlier though, I was 99 plus messages behind for a little bit in the chat, so I was appreciating you being able to stay ahead of them there. Yeah, Debbie says TikTok should have a way to block that from happening. They do, but they don't. Unfortunately, they don't have a way to block it. And in fact, when the Trump humpers, the MAGA folks, they start going after your live or your videos, a lot of times they take you down first and let you appeal later. And then, sometimes it's 2-3 days before you hear back, oh yeah, your video's been restored to the For You page. Well, Gallifrey J says, good night all, I'm beat. Well, you have a good night, Gallifrey. As always, this will be up over on my YouTube page if you want to check out the rest of it. I don't know how long I'm going to go. Yeah, they take you down, and then you have to do the appeal. And especially when you're talking news and politics, you get 2-3 days out of the news cycle. It's old news for a lot of stuff, and it doesn't matter if you get back on the For You page. It's just outdated.
Yeah, I've had comments taken down that were absolutely ridiculous. The algorithm it just doesn't even make any sense half the time.
I mistyped a comment one time and they got it taken down. We were talking about how the MAGA cult is against trans people. And I said they really only ever talk about trans women. You never notice that? And I think it's because they believe all trans women are just like Max Klinger from MASH, and I misspelled Klinger. They took my comment down, said it violated community guidelines and wouldn't restore it on appeal.
Well, you misspelled it in what way?
Instead of KLI, I spelled it KILN.
Oh.
And I don't know if they thought I was trying to spell kill,
right,
or what, but I think that's the reason it got taken down. But that was weird. Debbie says there's a video on YouTube about 30 minutes with nothing but people getting Trump tattoos. It's a cult.
No doubt. I have a lot of tattoos, but none of them are Trump. So
I don't currently have any. I've got multiples on my list of ones I want to get, but none of them involve Trump. Maybe if he ever goes to prison and there's a picture of him in a prison cell, maybe I'd consider that.
I'd do that one.
I'd at least consider it.
Yeah, if it was a legit photo, I'd do it.
Yeah, but even then, you still gotta have Trump on your tattooed on your body. Ugh.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like it'd be worth it. Him behind bars. I mean, I wouldn't, want him in any other way but behind bars.
Debbie says some of the tattoos were nice and some were hideous. I've seen some that are for Donald Trump that are, like, as far as the artwork goes, they're great tattoos. Like, the artwork is great, but the subject material, not so much.
I'm going to go with 98% of them were bad and 2% of them were good artwork.
Probably.
Because I'm kind of guessing, and I'm going out on a limb here, Eric. I'm kind of guessing that a lot of those tattoos were done in the kitchen of some trailer park somewhere, and it's some, cousin Bobby's going to give me a tattoo of Trump.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, we saw right after the assassination attempt, people were getting the picture of him with his fist in the air tattooed on their body.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
I have never really ever considered getting a political tattoo of any kind.
Yeah, I don't have any political tattoos, but, there's always a first, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What did Debbie say here? Debbie chimed in. No. Back. Let's see.
Oh, I saw that, Debbie. I saw that. That is ridiculous.
Debbie says the woman that got Trump tattooed on her forehead went to a professional artist. Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
You know,
wait till she has to get laser tattoo removal. I've had that done, and it is not pleasant. I'm telling you right now.
well,
Especially, I couldn't imagine getting it on my forehead. Like, that would be extremely painful.
yeah. Well, and the thing is, even with the laser removal, you can still kind of see an outline of what you had done. It's not perfect.
Well, the thing about, I'll explain that because I've had it done. The thing about laser removal is there's a couple things. Number one, black ink on the laser removal comes out the best. Like that laser, blasts out that black ink better than any color. Like the colors hang out longer. So if you have a very colorful tattoo, you're going to need to get more treatments because there's two different laser machines that remove the tattoo because of the spectrums of the colors. I don't know the whole science behind it, but black is the easiest thing to remove. And when I had the one on my shoulder removed, all the black was gone. There was barely anything left. There was a little bit of blue and a little tiny tinge of red left from what was there, and then I got it covered. But yeah, the black is the easiest to remove. And what Debbie's saying there in that case, it would be very easy to remove the black tattoo. And she just commented, if she got laser removal, will leave a scar? No. The laser removal doesn't leave a scar. The best way I can describe of what it is that the laser, it hits your skin and it breaks the ink up under your skin and your body absorbs it. So after you get the treatment, it hurts a lot, but it's actually worse like the week after you do it because it's like the worst sunburn you've ever had in your life. It blisters up like if you had, imagine the worst sunburn you ever had and then multiply that by 10. That's what it feels like.
Worst sunburn I ever had, I believe, was on the top of my head.
Say that again?
I think the worst sunburn I've ever had was on the top of my head.
Yeah, I could see that. You should probably wear more hats.
I try to, but it was oh god, I was young. I went bald early. Like I've had this hairline since I was like 19. And I want to say I was early 20s. And I was outside for a long time on a very cloudy day, and I thought I'd be fine because it was really overcast and I wasn't thinking about it. And I was outside, I bet you 7-8 hours that day. Yeah, burned the top of my head something fierce.
Yeah, well, I feel you there. Like, I'm fortunate genetic-wise that I have a full head of hair yet, but I'm borderline like Ginger. So, like, if I'm in the sun, I'm toast in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, Debbie said, oh my God, it hurts for a week. Debbie, no, you're wrong. It hurts for like 3 weeks.
Debbie also says, I never thought about sunscreen on the head. I didn't either until after I got that sunburn. And this is, even though it's kind of off topic of talking news and politics, this is where a lot of Republicans don't learn from that. Like I learned from it. I either remember to have sunscreen and cover it, or I take a hat with me. And just making sure that we are, that I'm covered so I don't burn the top of my head.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm in the same boat you are. Like, but it's my face and everything else,
Yeah.
If I'm in the sun for like 5 minutes, I'm toast. Like I'm burnt to a crisp.
And that can be bad in your line of work if you're doing any outside work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really work in the field anymore, but That used to be a thing. I used to get, torched all the time.
Yeah.
Sunscreen's important. My brother had skin cancer, so whenever I'm in the sun, I definitely do it.
Yeah, I end up, like I said, I typically, I even keep I got a couple of hats that I don't care about, just random ones.
Trump 2024 hat? Is that the hat that you wear?
No, I don't need any teepee. No, I keep a couple like just company promotional hats from places I don't work anymore or things like that. Actually, my dad for the longest time he was a wholesaler to plumbers.
Oh, okay.
So while he never actually worked in the plumbing field, he sold to plumbers. So he would occasionally get hats for for brands, as like a rep would come around or whatever and give out hats. I've got a couple of those that I keep around. I keep a couple of them in my vehicle in case I'm out someday and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to be outside for a long time. I need a hat. I'll wear it. I don't care. And I keep a couple of them around, like if I'm out doing the yard or mowing or what have you.
Yeah. Hey, Debbie made a good point. Don't wear the Trump hat. It'll rot your brain.
Yeah,
Right?
it does. I
Well,
I already looked the part without one. I don't need to be associated with them in any other way.
I think at that point you don't have a brain, so it's not going to rot because you can't rot what's not there.
Yeah. Rebecca.
Oh, Rebecca's in here now.
Oh boy, TJ's in trouble. Rebecca says, Debbie, I would die in the summer if I didn't put sunscreen on the part in your hair. Yeah. Debbie also says humor is going to get us through these next years. It is, and hope. And one of the things what's one of the reasons why I keep talking about, how they can't do as much as they may want us to believe. We have to have hope in the fact that the Constitution will hold. They don't have the power to really change it or affect it much. And, we have to look at the positives of where we're at. For them being in power, they're about as weak as they could possibly be. Now, if the Democrats had those same majorities, I think they would find a way to get a lot of things done by comparison.
I think Debbie might be onto something here. Maybe it was not totally accidental that you brought me up on here.
Why?
For the humor.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Oh, yeah. Good puppy. She's down here begging for attention.
I heard the squeaky toy last night. It was going in a big way. There was a big squeaky toy going.
It was just her ball. She was just sitting over on the couch, and she just was really getting after it. I wasn't sure how well my microphone was going to pick that up or not.
Oh, it did.
Debbie says, I'd feel better if they didn't have the Supreme Court, but I remember they have told Trump no before. Yeah, for as bad as the Supreme Court is, they will tell Trump no. They were put together for about one reason, and that was to overturn Roe v. Wade. They've served their purpose. They've overturned Roe. Now it's a gamble as to what else they're going to overturn, what else they're going to do. And there are going to be some things where they're just not going to be willing, I don't think, to overturn Supreme Court precedent and drastically change how things work. For example, going after birthright citizenship.
Yeah, I don't see how they could even do that. I mean, the 14th Amendment's pretty clear about that. I don't know how they could make an interpretation that would overend that. That doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, the last time it was really brought up before the court was in like the 1880s or the 1890s, something like that. And the Supreme Court even then said it is pretty clear any person born in the United States. The only if about that is where it says and subject to its jurisdiction. So where that applies is like if you have a woman who is a diplomat and she's pregnant while here as like a diplomat and she's got diplomatic immunity, that child would not get birthright citizenship. Those kind of people. Those are the few exceptions. Otherwise, anybody born here is a U.S. citizen. If they try to change it any other way and say that being under the jurisdiction means something else, well, then that's just opening all kinds of issues to where, like, if they say being under the jurisdiction means you have to be subject to its laws or something, and though if you're not a citizen, you're not subject to the laws. That would mean anybody who's here who's not a citizen can break any law they want and never be punished. There's just no way that I just don't see any way the Supreme Court, for as bad as they are, being able to do that. Let's see. Rebecca says they can't be seen as completely ridiculous. They are a lifetime. They want to be. They want to keep their jobs. How far can they push it? I think they'll rule against trans children. That's sad. They might. Haven't seen how that could go. Rebecca says everything back to the states. Yeah. That's their big play, is they want to push a bunch of stuff back to the states and go for states' rights and let states ban it, and then they can say, well, there's all these exceptions, or it's up to the voters in the state, or whatever bullshit excuse they want to come up with. But for some things, you can't give certain things back to the states, especially like when it comes to who is a citizen and who's not.
Well, that's such a crap argument anyway, because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of laws in this country that aren't enumerated in the Constitution that we follow that are not left up to the states. For example, the Fair Labor Standards Act, right?
Yeah.
We can't have children working in factories. We have child labor laws. Should we leave it up to the states whether or not there should be child labor laws? I mean, that's absurd.
Well,
there has to be some boundaries set by the federal government to deal with those situations. So they act like everything should be left up to the states. That's absolutely absurd. There has to be some oversight so that people aren't exploited or taken advantage of in red states that want to do those types of things.
Yeah. And as for what you were saying about the Fair Labor Standards, we have here in Iowa, they passed a new labor law, which was outside the scope of the federal law. And Department of Labor told the state of Iowa, remind your businesses that they still have to follow the federal law because you can't, supremacy clause, right?
Yes.
And, well, when it comes to time frames for minors working and what jobs, etc., there were some business owners that were Trump supporters that were voting, or that were following the state laws, which were looser than federal. And now they're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal fines for for violating the Fair Labor Act.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Right.
And that's exactly the point. And that's the same thing with Roe v. Wade. There needs to be a standard across the board that the federal government says you can't do this.
Yeah, I mean the whole it wouldn't. I'm against the bans anyway, but if the bans worked the way they say they do, with the exceptions, and they weren't hard to get, that would be a slightly different story. It would be easier to accept and say, okay, well, the exceptions are there and they're working. But then you find out that these exemptions aren't actually there because, life of the mother comes up, and the fact that, like the one lady in Texas who, if she would have carried her pregnancy to term, the baby wouldn't have lived, and she may never have been able to have a baby ever again. And then she gets told by the Texas Supreme Court, no, that doesn't qualify under the exemption. So the exemptions really aren't there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but and that's the problem, is that a lot of the exemptions are a farce in those states.
Yeah.
They're not real. They say, oh yeah, in the event of the life of the mother, but then the doctor's on the hook to get prosecuted because there was some, little clerical error or whatever it is. The doctors are terrified to do the procedure because they're going to get thrown in jail.
Right.
It's a farce.
It is. Let's see. Debbie says, at Rebecca, it's true if they give Trump too much power, he won't need them, referring to the Supreme Court. And Debbie continues, like Eric said, they don't want to give up their power. And that revives to, that implies to the Supreme Court, that follows with Congress. They all want their own power. They want to keep their power. Rebecca says, plus they want to remain after Trump. Exactly. Supreme Court has made the United States divided. Jules says, do you actually accept live requests? This was actually kind of a goof. I was just trying to scroll the chat and I accidentally invited TJ, but we did a live over on the Rational Boomer last night, so we just went with it. And it's been kind of fun so far. Rebecca says, luckily we have Shapiro in PA, so he will protect us. That's good. Debbie says they're already rolling back child labor laws. They're trying. Like I said, here in Iowa, they passed a thing where, now, still got to follow the federal laws. And I think they made it so if you can be as young as 12, you can get a job in Iowa in certain industries. And if the federal labor laws fall, that's what would happen. Each state would have their own thing, and they want to put kids back to work instead of in school where they should be.
Well, yeah, because they want to pay the least amount of money in wages so that kids have to go and help support their families.
Yeah, that's a big chunk of it. Rebecca says, of course it's all absurd, but trans rights, but trans rights may become a state issue. It already kind of falls under Roe with privacy. Yeah, they want to make it a states' rights issue, and unfortunately, they said with the Supreme Court case about trans rights, they were kind of saying, well, there's no evidence of, or no long historical precedent of trans people being discriminated against because they haven't been around that long, meaning they haven't been free to come out and be open and be who they are. And some of the Republicans on the bench were just trying to say, maybe we should leave it up to the states, or maybe we shouldn't have them as a protected thing. So we'll see how they rule. Debbie says, the exceptions are talking points. You have to be one heartbeat away from death before you can get care. In some cases, you have to be one heartbeat after death. And then they have to bring you back in order for them to actually give you care. Let's see. They should impeach Trump to stop causing economic instability with his tariffs. They may have to. They may have to. I've been talking about it. I've been saying, if it looks like that he's going to crash the economy to the point where they feel like they will not get reelected in the midterms, or it is going to hurt their chances in 2028 or whichever, Republicans may have to impeach and remove him on their own just to save their own butts and to save their party. And if J.D. Vance becomes president because They impeached and removed him. I think he walks the line, and he's walking a very fine tightrope about how he acts and how he behaves, because he wouldn't want to be the second person impeached and removed by their own party. Uh, it would be bad. Now, as far as who he would pick for a VP, not a clue.
Yeah, but Eric, I think that's the plan all along, because Donald Trump is a liability to the Republican Party, and they want to get rid of him.
Oh, they do.
J.D. Vance is someone that they can control. Donald Trump is unpredictable. His behavior and his ego and all the things that encompass who he is a liability for the Republican Party.
Oh, yeah. I would 100% agree. What I'm saying is, if Donald Trump dies or J.D. Vance successfully pulls off the 25th Amendment, he's going to be more emboldened to do more of what he wants. Whereas if they impeach and remove Trump, I think Vance walks a little tighter rope, just because he'd be scared of them, because they went after their own party. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm over guessing where J.D. Vance would be at, but he would definitely be well under their thumb if they impeach and remove Donald Trump. Let's see. Debbie says it's possible they let him do half a year or something. Then 25th Trump. They don't like Trump. Did you already get rid of Sleet Stack?
Yes.
Okay. He followed me? What? I mean, you got rid of, like, some of his comments are hilarious, but the fact is he followed me.
That's weird.
Very weird. Vance would pick whoever the powers tell him to. Yeah, he would. TKS Daddy said Trump is a liability that has the Republican Party weaken our nation. Yeah. Heritage specifically wants Vance, not Trump. Yeah, they do. They would much rather have him, but they would much rather have him with a bigger majority in both chambers of Congress. They're going to be fighting to get anything done, and it's going to be bad. Debbie says Trump is a psycholo. They know they can't control him, just like Trump can't control his bladder.
It's more than his bladder.
According to reports, yeah, you're right. I mean, I talk about it a lot, but Bill Clinton was president when I excuse me. Bill Clinton was president when I graduated. He is younger than Donald Trump, and he was president 20 plus years ago. Like, that's ridiculous. Ouch. Rebecca says, luckily, Trump is lazy and doesn't want to actually do work. That isn't all difficult. Yeah. Yeah, he's completely lazy. That's going to be one of our saving graces, is that he's lazy. And, you know, he's not going to want to do more than he can. He's talking a good game now, and then nothing's going to happen. It's going to always be 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And then when they barely get anything done, he's going to have to find a way to blame the Democrats. Debbie says he's lazy, but it's scary who he's leaving in charge while he golfs. Yeah, except for the fact that without his signature, there's not a lot Vance can do. Vice President can't sign laws. Vice President can't approve treaties, can't impose tariffs, can't do anything. Now he's got his cabinet members, sure, but how many of them get out of the cabinet? We're hearing that our junior senator here in Iowa, Joni Ernst, she was on the fence about Hegseth and leaning to not confirm him. Now she's saying, "Well, I want to see what he has to say during his confirmation hearing, and see how that shakes out." Well, they end up. Now she's changed her tune. Well, we're also hearing that one of Donald Trump's attorneys is threatening to do private investigators and things like that on Republican senators who don't walk the line and confirm all of his nominees. Rebecca says everyone should still curb spending and try to save just in case he does impose tariffs and deport. Yeah, I've already tried to cut back as much of my spending as I can. If I can get away with not spending it, I don't. Because we got to be prepared. Those tariffs, when they hit, it's not just like prices go up 25%. I've talked about it, and somebody else has talked about it. Who I think it was an email thing on Mike's podcast, maybe, was saying, yeah, that it's above the. So when your cost goes up, the percentage of that new cost that you want to make in your profit also goes up. Like, even though it's the same percentage, like the same dollars change. So then you add that additional into your cost and to get your new price, and it's big.
Yeah, they take the base cost, which will include the tariff, and then mark up that total amount of money. So you're paying markup on the cost of the product plus the tariff.
Yeah. Debbie says, what do you think about buying a used car versus new in 2025? Will used cars cost more too? I don't know. Probably.
Yeah.
If they can get away with it. Because they kind of price used cars off of the new car market.
There'll be a shortage of cars.
Yeah. And if he starts to really hurt the economy, places like the buy here, pay here places where you get the weekly payments with no credit check and ridiculously high payments and interest, they're going to be the places that are going to be booming. Probably because their car payments are going to be so low. There's a place here in town where, like, a lot of their cars, you can get them for like $40 a week or something like that off your paycheck.
Eric, it's already hard to get cars. I was at a car dealer today because our organization is buying 4 new vehicles. And the salesman said to me, because I had to take my fleet vehicle in there, and he said to me, he's like, you guys are lucky. He said, we found 4 Ford Explorers, just by luck. Like, 2 of them are still in the plant, in the manufacturing plant, that have to be shipped out to the dealer. So we got lucky, and he's like, vehicles are hard to come by. He's like, you guys lucked out that you were able to get 2 transferred into this dealership and then 2 from the plant.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know a couple of years ago when my dad was still working, and this was only a couple of years ago, he needed to get a new work vehicle. And his boss finally, in the 2020s, came around to actually paying and getting 4-wheel drive vehicles, 4-wheel drive work trucks to haul, plumbing parts and tubs and pipe and all of that stuff. And the only reason he did it is because he couldn't find, there was no resale value in a rear-wheel drive truck anymore. Nobody wants them.
Right. You don't want that in Pennsylvania, I can tell you that right now.
You don't want it in Iowa. I mean, I know you guys got it worse, but it was bad. It gets bad enough here. Let's see. TKS Daddy says banks having overextended loans are hoarding secondary access to housing and vehicles. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's part of it. They're overextended again, and that's where, um, if Donald Trump, well, Elon Musk gets his way and they get rid of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, that's going to hurt everyday people. Because if they do things like get overextended and then they start uh, gouging people and stuff, that's where the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau is supposed to step in and make sure everybody's playing fair. Uh, Sunset says, I figure used car market will go up because demand will increase. I mean, that's the basis. That's the basis for it. No one's going to be able to afford a new car if the economy takes a shit. So they're going to want to do whatever they can for a used car. I mean, I know several people that are driving 20-plus-year-old vehicles because they can't afford anything better. Not without going to a place, like I said, the buy here, pay here places where they take a $3,000 vehicle and by the time you're done making your payments, you're paying 10. Rebecca says, try living in Erie. We would never own a vehicle that isn't four-wheel drive. Yeah, I can only imagine with 5 feet of snow.
It's ridiculous. What happened over the weekend was no one could deal with that except for us. Like we live in that environment and we expect things to happen, but getting 60 inches of snow in 3 days it's crazy.
Yeah. Debbie says at Sunset, just another way of price gouging. These businesses are out of control. They are. What caused the Republican Party to go extreme? Trump. Trump fell ass backwards into the presidency. I've talked about it a lot. He came out of nowhere. The Republican Party didn't react to him fast enough in the primary and get enough people out of the race. And by the time they realized he was gaining momentum and gaining steam, it was too late. They didn't know how to react to him on the primary stage. They didn't know how to do anything with him, really. And because they wanted to do old school politics, they wanted to do things how they just worked with Mitt Romney 4 years before. And then he's got his attitude, and then he fires up this rabid base of MAGA mouth breathers who have a 6th grade education at best, and they shift to the extreme because he brought in, I think he actually activated a group of people that probably had never voted pre-Trump because he appealed to them. And now they are the bulk of his base, and Republicans just don't know how to react. Let's see.
That's so same, Eric. That's the same trailer park tattoo parlors.
Yeah, exactly. Debbie says, man, the layoffs alone are going to be rough, not to mention everything else. Yeah, if the layoffs start happening, don't know what's going to happen.
I'll tell you something about layoffs. Right now, I think I might have mentioned this last night, but I'll do it in your live so people hear it here. But right now in Columbus, Ohio, Intel is building a microprocessor plant because of the CHIPS Act. If Donald Trump rescinds that, there's 2,700 building trades union members building that plant as we speak. If Trump rescinds that CHIPS Act, it's over. That's layoffs.
Yeah. And now you've got a factory that's partially built, not going to be able to produce anything as to what it normally would. And, they're going to have to hope somebody else comes in, takes over the factory, is able to retool it mid-work because it was already partially built. And Yeah, that's a lot of layoffs, a lot of tradespeople. Debbie says, "Do you think he'll rescind it? Why in the world would he do that?" Uh,
Because this Biden's policy, and he doesn't, he doesn't like that.
TJ beat me to it. That's the big thing. What he would probably try to do is rescind it and then repass it uh, with his own, with his name attached to it, like he did with NAFTA.
Eric, here's the caveat of that: is that if they do that, I mean, it was an act of Congress, so it's hard for him to do that. But here's the thing: all those projects from the rescue plan and from the CHIPS Act, they all have to be built under a project labor agreement. That's part of the deal that Joe Biden made. So what that means is this, is that those projects, those major construction projects that are government funded, have to be done under an agreement that makes them constructed 100% union. So when it goes back out, if he does, some handiwork with rescinding it, those will not be, they'll not be under that project labor agreement requirement.
Yeah, I think he definitely would try to do it that way, but he would he still, if he was going to reauthorize it, he would want it to be something where he could get the credit for it. That's all I was saying.
Yes.
Rebecca says if you're going to need a new cell phone soon, buy now. Yeah, I'm just trying to wait till January, February when the new model comes out for Samsung, because we're so close. I don't want to miss the newest upgrade.
I won't judge you.
Well, that, and I went to go upgrade my phone like 4 months ago, and they said with it only being two models different, I wouldn't even notice the difference as far as anything, but I would really notice the change in a third year, that it would be a significant increase in ability. So we'll see. Rebecca asks, "What are your thoughts on crypto going up?"
I think Elon Musk has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, Musk having something to do with it. I just think crypto's a scam. It really is. I mean, it's a digital something. I don't entirely understand how the blockchain works, but it's some digital piece of code that they have convinced you is worth something. And it's only worth so much because other people have agreed that it's worth something. Like, it's ridiculous. I realize the American dollar is only worth something because we've agreed it's worth something, but at least that has the full backing of the faith and credit of the United States. It has the entire nation behind it, effectively.
Well, it has gold market value.
No, we've been off the gold standard for 40 years.
Oh.
40, no, not 40 years. God. Longer than that. I think we went off the gold standard in the 60s. 60s or 70s. Rebecca says, "Isn't that kind of how the dollar works?" Yeah. Debbie says it's a scam. Someone said it's a way to loot the treasury, but I don't know about that. I don't understand it. Well, what they're talking about is there was a bill put forward in Congress by what's her name? I don't remember. This Republican senator anyway, who said over the next 5 years that Congress should buy a million Bitcoin. At the current market price of over $100,000 a Bitcoin, that is $100 billion. That would be taking money out of the Treasury, taking American tax money, and transferring it to people who own crypto. And that's what they mean about it being a way to loot the treasury. They were talking about part of that plan would be selling off some of the gold in Fort Knox, that it has been questioned as to whether or not it's even still there. Because now I haven't looked into this myself personally, but apparently I've seen a couple shows on it where they say the dollar amount in Fort Knox of what we say we have in gold hasn't changed since the Nixon administration. Like they have never adjusted the value of the gold that's there for the increase in gold price since Nixon. So they wonder if it's even actually still sitting there or if it's all just gone.
I think there's a certain amount of danger with cryptocurrency as far as it's untraceable. So cartels that are doing business in the United States could effectively use cryptocurrency to transfer funds that's untraceable to, do transactions for fentanyl and other things that are coming into the country. It's concerning.
Fun fact: do you know why the $100 bill is the largest denomination bill we can have in circulation?
No.
It was something passed by Nixon for the war on drugs. Because because we used to have $100,000 bills. So how big would a stack of $1,000,000 be if you can go to the bank and get a $100,000 bill? You're talking 10 bills. Fits in your pocket, fits in your wallet. But if you got to get $1,000,000 in hundos, now what are you talking about? Small briefcase, small suitcase, something like that. That was why they took out all of the big bills out of circulation, and back in the 70s, and they said $100 upper limit. I don't remember who was on the $100,000 note, but we used to have big bills, and it used to be common until cartels and the drug trade was running multi-million dollars in and out with an amount of bills that would fit in your wallet.
That's nuts.
It is. Weird little fun fact I learned somewhere. I don't remember where I learned it, but I absorb all those weird little things.
Well, we count on you for the history lessons over here.
I will admit I love history, and I know several people that I graduated with. The only reason they passed American history in high school was because of me. Because they weren't getting it for the way that the teacher was explaining it.
Oh no. Oh no.
What?
If I drop off, I gotta plug in my phone.
Okay.
Where's my charger?
Oh, I hate that. Yeah, they used to print. Yeah, let's see. Who said that? Who said that about $500 bills? Becca said 500 stopped printing in, I think, the 40s. You've seen a couple. Yeah, they're all. You can still buy them. Now they have way more value as a collector's item than they have as a spendable bill. I think you could still spend it as a bill. Like it, I think you could, as long as it was a legit one from that era. I think you could still spend it. I'm not 100% sure on that, but the collector value goes way up.
I saved myself at 1%.
Oh, I love when that happens. That was me. I think one of the first times I did the podcast with Mike. I think after we got done doing the podcast, um, I think I finished the podcast at like 9%. And you know how Mike likes to talk after the podcast too.
Yes.
I had to run and go get my charger just to keep talking to him. But
Debbie said her bank is ghetto.
yeah, she says if she took a $500 bill in there, uh, they'd call the cops. Yeah, they probably they might. I mean, we hear about people actually getting the cops called on them for a $2 bill, which are actual legal currency because you just don't see them. They're not common. Scott says you can. If a bank gets a $500 bill, it's sent to the mint to be destroyed. Oh, so okay, that makes sense. You take it to the bank, they verify it's a legit bill, and then it goes back to the Federal Reserve, and it gets taken out of circulation and destroyed, which is a shame. Uh, Debbie said they destroy them. Why? To take it out of circulation, um, because they're not supposed to be circulated anymore. You can keep it as a collector's item, and apparently, because I see them sold all the time at different shops and things, um, which is fine. But as far as the bank's concerned, they're no longer supposed to exist, or as far as the Fed is concerned. So they destroy them. Uh, Scott says you still see them in coin stores, some pawn shops. Uh, Kind of like the old bills we used to have. Yeah, they come to a point when they start taking them out of circulation. Rebecca says, "I wish they'd be that with pennies." Oh, apparently we lost TJ. Must have lost his phone must have died. Um, but yeah, the uh, they've talked numerous times about getting rid of the penny and just rounding everything up to 5 cents, but they've never been able to actually make it happen. Um, One of the last times I heard about it, it costs something like 2.7 cents or something like that per penny to actually like it. They lose money minting pennies for every penny produced. It is something weird like that. Debbie says, right, what's the point in a penny? We just have to be difficult. Um, Anymore, kind of, with the way uh, prices and everything have gone, we could round everything to the nearest 10, 5 or 10. Um, Part of the problem comes into when you have tax. Um, that's where it really makes a difference. One of the other places we actually sell, I don't know if anybody ever pays it, no one pays attention realistically, but because of a tax on gas, like when you go to the pump and it says 279, you're not paying 279. You're paying $2.79 and 9 tenths of a penny per gallon because they round it up. Debbie says, I forgot about daylight savings. Didn't they vote to stop it? I thought they did, but I don't know. I think the Senate passed it. I don't know if it passed the House. Um, Debbie says, huh, it's official. Penny just broke your brain. Yeah. Like, the weird tax rates is part of it for why we keep the penny around. Gas tax, that's a big chunk of it. We could probably get rid of it and round it all to a nickel, but there's always pushback. But I've been going almost 2 hours here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Um, I want to thank everybody for joining me. Even though I think he dropped out because I think his phone died, I want to thank TJ for being such a great moderator and keeping us safe from all of the bots and and the headaches. Um, and for those of you who have caught this, if you want to catch the whole thing, it will be up over on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan, over on YouTube. I have this live up. I have the live from last night that I did, as well as the three-person live, the multi-guest live that I did with TJ and the Rational Boomer last night. That is up there. If you want the video version of that, it is up over on the Rational Boomers page, also on YouTube. He's got his actual screen where you can see everybody. Whereas mine, it's the other version with me from the profile, how I normally record just my lives, and you just have the audio. But it was a great, another great live. Rebecca says fell asleep last night and missed half of last night. Well, Mike and I both have it up on our YouTube pages, so you can catch it either way if you want to go check it out. Like I said, this will be up over on my YouTube page sometime tonight. I appreciate everybody for hanging out and having such a great conversation. Oh, there's TJ. He's back. TJ says his charger failed him. Well, you came back just in time for me to be signing out. Hopefully you got it figured out. And you all have a great night. And I will talk to you the next time I go live. All right, wrapping that up. It was another great live. Hope you guys all enjoyed it, and I will catch you the next time.